Welcome to the I Love Wine and Dogs podcast, created, produced, and hosted by Heidi Hubner, with engineering and production by Timothy Stone Dancer Coleman. This show was created to celebrate good wine, amazing pets, and people from around the world who are doing great things in their local communities. Welcome back, creative family, to another episode of the I Love Wine and Dogs podcast. My name is Timothy Stone Dancer Coleman. I am the co-host, producer, engineer, all the way over here in the Bronx, New York. I'm so excited to be here with my sister. She is our creator. She is our producer. She is our host, Miss Heidi Hubner. Heidi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And I am so excited too about our guest because it was the first wine club that I joined in the Central Coast. And I know we've talked about some wineries there and just how amazing it's like this little golden nugget in California, like the best kept secret that's not so much secret anymore.
Sawyer Lindquist wines are a collaboration between Bob Lindquist and Louisa Sawyer Lindquist. The wines all have a distinctive flair and reflect a balanced style of these two talented winemakers. Welcome to the show, Bob and Louisa. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're very happy to be here, Timothy and Heidi. Sawyer Lindquist is something that Bob and I do together. We make small quantities of wines under that label, such as
Sawyer on Lindquist.
Right. We do a fun Tempranillo and Syrah. We've made Pinot Blancs. We've made, what else?
Pinot Noir.
Yeah. And there's a couple things that we're planning on making, maybe a Syrah Cabernet coming out soon, and a Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. In addition to that, we each have our labels that we focus on solely. Bob is Lindquist Family Wines, and I'm Verdad Wine Cellars. So it's lots of wine all the time. I'll taste his wines, he'll taste my wines, and we'll bounce things off each other. The Lindquist family and Verdad Wine Cellars are made separately.
And the focus for each of those brands is different. I produce Rhone varietals and also Chardonnay from the Biennacido vineyard. And then Louisa produces Iberian varietals, Tempranillo, Albarino, Godello, and also Cabernet Sauvignon. So there's no overlap in the wines that we make that way. The overlap comes when we do this collaborative Sawyer Lindquist link. This is our passion, our career. It's what I've been doing my whole adult life and what Louisa's been doing her whole adult life. I find it useful to give a little geography lesson to those who may not be familiar with the lay of the land. We are 3 hours north of Los Angeles, 4 hours south of San Francisco, and on the coast. So if you're familiar with where Santa Barbara is, we're just north of that, about an hour to an hour and a half. The vineyards are in the northern Santa Barbara County area and the southern San Luis Obispo.
So from LA or San Francisco, you could just go for the day if you want and do the tastings and go home. So each show we talk about a wine, and I was just at the tasting room a couple weeks ago, and this is the wine that I want you guys to talk about.
That's the 09 Tempranillo. Yeah.
And I'm so excited to try this, but it was great because it was before Valentine's Day. So they had this basket of like fun different wines that you could buy at a little discounted price, which was great. And so I picked another one, but this was one I was excited. Tim loves red. So on behalf of him, I'm like, definitely going to get this, but talk about this, you guys. Talk about this wine.
Well, Tempranillo, of course, is a Spanish varietal. It's the most widely planted grape in Spain, although Grenache is right up there with it. It's famous in Rioja and Ribera del Duero, and it's an elegant red wine, but also very strong, very firm tannins. The wine needs time to age. This particular wine is made from a clone from Ribera del Duero, which has a really nice, generous mid-palate, but also really good structure. And it was grown in Edna Valley, which is the coolest growing climate in California from bud break to harvest. So it's the longest growing season in California, or so it's touted. And that's because of the direct ocean influence. It's about 5 miles from the Pacific Ocean, and that keeps it really cool and the acidity is high. So this particular wine was destemmed. Occasionally, I use a little bit of whole cluster, but in 2009, I did not. And it's fermented in tank, punched down by hand once a day, and then pumped over once a day, and aged in puncheons, which are 500-liter barrels. The traditional barrel you think of wine being aged in is often the barrique. It's between 225 and 230 liters. So this is more than a double barrel, which allows the wine to age a little bit slower because there's less wine to air space. And it's used this puncheon is used widely all over Spain for all the wines. And we find that it's great for Tempranillo. And the barrels are French and Hungarian that I use for the Tempranillo program. And it's aged about 18 months prior to release. So it should be really great now. There's a little bit of Grenache and Syrah blended into that. And what we suggest doing with older wines, and Bob can speak to this better than me, is to stand it up for a day before you open it, and then carefully open it without shaking it. And
yeah, it was not filtered, so it's going to throw a little bit of sediment, and especially with time. And it's always beneficial with a wine like that to decant it and get it off the sediment and allow the wine to kind of open up at the same time. So that 09, that's what I'd recommend doing: is stand it up, decant it, and enjoy it that way.
Okay, so it's been standing up, so it's going to be ready to go. Tonight with dinner, I'm so excited. So when you see wines, when they're put, I don't want to tilt it, but when they're housed this way, you're seeing the cork end here. That's how they're not rotated ever. Do you just leave them that way until they're ready to be boxed up or opened up to drink?
So when we bottle, we actually put it into the case upside down, so the cork stays wet. Yeah, that's the traditional. I mean, there are lay down boxes also, but the type of case box that we use is the traditional kind of 12 bottle case, and the wines with cork go upside down in the case. We make some wines under Stelvin or screw cap. Those wines are kept upright in the case, and they're meant to be stored upright. Now, most wine racks, of course, have the wine laying on its side. So when you take it out of the case, you put it in on its side, and that helps keep the cork wet. In fact, it keeps the cork wet, which is really important. It also allows the sediment to land on the bottom of the bottle. So if you're using a cradle, which is another kind of typical or traditional way of opening up an older wine, you would carefully pull the wine out of the side, laying sideways, and put it in the cradle so it stays on its side. But it's just slightly tilted up so that when you pull the cork out, it won't come pouring out.
That's an instrument for professionals.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would necessarily start with the cradle.
It's a lot easier to stand it up for a day and open it upright and then decant it.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Go to your local shelter or work with your local rescue group to bring in your new forever loving baby if you're ready. Remember, you got to make sure you're ready for this commitment, but you can foster, you can volunteer. There are so many other ways that you can give back and help your fellow community in the pet world.
Like, share, and subscribe on Facebook and Instagram at I Love Wine and Dogs.
Welcome to The Gladly, a contemporary neighborhood eatery nestled in the heart of Central Phoenix. Here, local chef Bernie Cantat crafts flavorful new American cuisine blended with innovation and tradition. At The Gladly, every dish is a celebration of taste, paired with the extensive beverage program boasting over 350 whiskeys. Join us and savor the magic of The Gladly, where every meal is an experience and every visit a memory. Welcome back to the show. for those of us who are not by a vineyard, for those of us who are just kind of catching it at a local store or lucky enough to join a wine club and have it shipped, when you mention aged, like what is a proper age? How far back should I be buying a bottle of wine for it to really have everything that you're talking about?
It really all depends on the wine. I know that's a kind of a rote answer, but wine is, wines that are made in a balanced fashion and kind of using traditional methods are generally age-worthy, whites and reds. And the style of wines that we make, most of them are age-worthy. And Tempranillo being a great example of that. That wine could go another 10 to 15 years, and it's all about proper storage.
Very, very important. Proper storage, not being moved around a lot, and staying at cellar temperature, which is which a lot of people can't do. You're in New York, Timothy, so how much storage space does anybody have?
Very small counter in my Bronx apartment. You know what I'm saying?
These wines have never been moved. From one warehouse to another once in their lifetime, so they're in great shape. But if you have a bottle you bought 10 years ago and it's on your kitchen counter, it's not going to be this aged quite the same as if it was at a warehouse that's 55 degrees and stationary. So, and then exposure to light is important too. You want to avoid that.
Yeah. Wine cellars are dark and cool, and that's there's a reason for that.
So for my Bronx folks, what I'm in, and you correct me where I'm wrong because you guys are the experts, but what I'm receiving from that is if you order wine and it comes, in a box, however it is, leave it in the box, push it into a corner, don't bring it out and try and display it all across your counter in your kitchen where the sun is shining directly on it, as mine is right now. Do it the other way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that said, there aren't any rules, but if you're not going to put it in your cellar or a wine temperature controlled refrigerator or something like that, just drink it. Drink it young.
See, I like that option. Bob and I get along really well already.
And that's one of the nice things about balanced wines that are delicious. You can drink them when they're young, and then they'll continue to improve with age, and they change. They take on different characteristics as they age, and that's kind of the magic of wine and what makes it a little bit special and different than a lot of other beverages.
So as far as whites go, and maybe it depends on the white, I feel like, is their shelf life not as long as reds that you shouldn't hold on to them, or does it depend?
As a general rule of thumb, that would be true. But I make a white variety called Roussan that ages just as well as my red Syrah. So it really depends on the wine and how it's made and its balance. There's a lot of variables in that, but in the overall sense, white wines are meant to be drunk younger than red wines in the overall sense.
Table wine with higher alcohol will not age as well as a table wine with more moderate alcohol. At some point, the alcohol will overtake the fruit characteristics in the wine. So again, that sense of balance also helps a wine evolve and have a longer life.
In the general sense, is it like 11% versus 14.5%? Like
traditional table wines would usually be between 12 and 14%. And if they're above 14%, they're a little high in alcohol. If they're above 14.5%, you start noticing the alcohol. And it's actually a real easy kind of test to do, is to take something that's 13%, smell it, something that's 14.5% and smell it, and feel the difference that the alcohol fumes feel on your nose. And then as it gets up to 15, 16, which a lot of wines are these days, you really notice it. And that said, there's a lot of people who appreciate those big, bold, higher alcohol wines, but don't put them in the cellar. There are some exceptions, to that. There are some, that are purposely made that way. Chateauneuf de Pape would be a prime example. Those wines are usually 14.5%, 15%, and they age beautifully just because of what they are.
Priorat is
Priorat
another
is
example in Spain.
Yeah, in Spain.
And those wines are from very old vines. They're probably, the average age is between 70 and 85 years old. And the production is very low on those old vines. So they're very concentrated. They carry it well and they have great balance. They have good acidity too, and other things that keep it. But that's, there's always exceptions, especially in wine, hard and fast rules.
Are you guys cracking open a bottle?
Yeah, so we have a little Verdad Sauvignon Blanc. This is from the 2023, of the 2023 out in the marketplace. We don't have any more. We just bottled the 24, but we're the 24 is a little bit young in the bottle. The 23 is showing perfectly right now. And this we bottled under screw cap, so it's easily accessible.
And screw tops you should keep standing up because
Right.
they're not meant to age on their sides. So that's something a lot of people don't know. So this is made from certified organic grapes from the Rusac vineyard, which the vines are about 20 years old in Ballard Canyon, which is in the San Ynez Valley. Some people say that Ballard Canyon is the gold standard for Sauvignon Blanc.
They're like the cutest. I love them so much. So Tim is going to come. He's going to make a trip to LA. And I said, you will be the first stop.
Wonderful.
And I can't wait for him to see your tasting room. I have a quick question, then I want to segue into the tasting room, which is so beautiful. If you have not finished the bottle, what is really the right way? And again, let's talk screw top versus cork. Educate us. Like, what do you do to make the wine recorked the right way?
We have a canister of argon gas that at the end of the day, say we have a half full bottle, we'll put a little bit of argon gas in the wine to what's called sparge the airspace and take the oxygen out. That helps preserve the wine overnight. And then we stick them in the refrigerator because keeping in the refrigerator also helps preserve them better overnight.
Right. And if you don't, most people don't have argon lying around their house. So just the refrigerator is fine.
And with a cork, something that a lot of people don't know or think about, it's really important to put the wet end of the cork back in the bottle. And the reason I say that is that the top of the cork has been exposed to air all this time that it's been aging or sitting around, and that top of the cork could actually taint what's in the bottle. So it's better always to put the wet end of the cork back in the bottle.
These are good tips because we don't know this. I'm in the know and I feel good about that.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Coming up on the next episode of I Love Wine and Dogs.
And I spent the next 4 hours on my roof. And as you can see by these pictures, it got really hairy. And at nightfall, I was on the roof. I had water pressure. I had been blown off my feet by a gust of wind. We had about 65 to 70 mile an hour winds. And I started to be blown over the edge of my roof and 20 feet down onto concrete. And I immediately flashed on the fact that 3 years ago, I had a very serious accident and I fell off a cliff in Malibu, nearly died, and had to be airlifted out. They couldn't rescue me normally. And I don't want to go through that again.
Like, share, and subscribe on Facebook and Instagram at I Love Wine and Dogs.
Welcome back to the show.
Let's talk about your tasting room. It is so beautiful. I know you moved from the other one to your new one and the gallery behind it. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It's in what's called the village of Arroyo Grande, which is in southern San Luis Obispo County, and right in the middle of this kind of historic little village.
And the tasting room is the original house that it's in was built in the late 1800s and then was added on to, and it was a home where people lived, and then it was this various office space for an oil company and a lawyer and a tasting room, then back to another lawyer. And our landlords purchased it a few years ago, and we brought us in. They asked us to join them and rent the space. And we really tried to be true to the roots of this what would you call it? California bungalow?
Yeah. California
Victorian, although the
Yeah.
village of Arroyo Grande classifies it as a Victorian. So we've tried to stay true to that with the molding and really pretty wood. We did knock out a couple walls to have it flow nicely, and it's utterly charming. There's a beautiful front porch and then some patios on the side. You get to people watch the bustling village. Not quite New York, but, and then behind it, our landlords built this incredibly beautiful gallery, one of the only one in Arroyo Grande and one of only a couple on the Central Coast that shows paintings of Western, mostly Californian artists. And it's really something special. Eric von Berg is a painter himself, and he has some of his works in our space, as well as we have some other paintings from local artists. And it just really lifts the whole environment to be surrounded by beautiful paintings.
It's all about art and wine, or wine and art.
Right.
Depending on which, if you're drinking or looking at the gallery.
And of course, wine is an art to make it well. And I think, like painters, making wine is something that really, to make it good consistently takes experience. And the only way to have experience is to put in the time and the years doing it. So it's great. I think there is a great parallel and synergy there.
Love how you just said, putting in the time. Heidi and I were speaking earlier about, when there's something that you really want or something that, when you find your purpose and you are pushing towards doing that thing that is the most important to you, that thing that burns kind of like in your soul and like you wake up every day excited to do it. On the road to getting to that point, you have to still be doing your homework. You're giving me like pretty simple, put the wet cork back in, don't tilt the bottle, put it in the refrigerator. Like it's still simple things that I can do so that the quality of what I'm drinking doesn't deteriorate over a period of time, however long it takes to get through a bottle of wine for someone other than me. Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah. And you mentioned things putting in your body. We do source and grow organic, SIP certified, sustainable, and biodynamic grapes, because that's the type we like to eat cleanly as possible. And that's important to us, and also important to us is very simple traditional winemaking. There's a lot, unfortunately, with larger wineries and in some areas of the world, including California, a lot of wine is made by recipe. And our wine, we just really try to pick at the optimal ripeness, treat it very gently, and ferment it in barrels, perhaps the tanks for a couple of my wine, and then age it in barrels, and really express the vineyard and the place where it's grown in, and just try not to screw it up. So we want to keep that, the carefully farmed, lovingly tended grapes, and steward that into a beautiful bottle of wine, rather than some wineries pick overripe, add water back, add acid, spin out the volatile acidity, add color if they want, pull out the color for Saignée to make it deeper. It's just, there's some techniques that are useful if it's a difficult vintage, but not as a matter of course as a recipe. Those wines tend to be very homogeneous and taste the same. So anyways, we do want honest wines, simple, honest wines.
And a really good kind of rule of thumb too with winemaking, just like it is with cooking, the better the ingredients, the better the final product, as long as you don't mess it up. So the quality of the grapes is
I love that,
paramount to making great wine. So we're going to move on to having a little taste of a red wine that I make under my label, the Lindquist family label, our label, but the wines that I make all the final decisions on. So this is our Lindquist Syrah.
And you see that tree?
My gosh, I love it.
That's a linden tree, and the name Lindquist means linden tree twig, or linden trees are also called lime trees in Europe.
We'll be right back after these messages.
There are only a select few relationships that can ever come close to that of grandmother and her grandchildren. Such is the case with Journey and her grandmother. Journey and her granny love each other dearly. Journey looks up to her grandmother in every aspect of her life, a love reciprocated with her grandmother's every action. If it is something as little as a new crayon box, Granny always is excited for her little Journey, as she means the world to her. This book is about such relationships, pure and delicate as one that's with Journey. Grab your copies today to find out about the sweet and genuine love between a granddaughter and her grandmother in Gillian Bell's new book, Are You Aware?
Welcome back to the show. Welcome back, creative family. We are here in season 2 of the I Love Wine and Dogs podcast. Heidi, it's back to you.
Well, I got to know how the red is that they just opened up. How's that tasting?
Sure, well, yeah, this is a Syrah, which is the red wine that I've been making since 1982. I was one of the very early proponents of the grape variety in California. And Syrah is one of the great red wine grapes of the world. It comes originally from the Rhone, and it's found a real home here in California, and especially here on the Central Coast. I make Syrah from various cool climate sites in both northern Santa Barbara County and southern San Luis Obispo County. And the one that I just opened is one that I name after my mother, Sani. So we call it our Sani's Syrah. And it's in 2021, it's a blend of 3 of our best vineyards, 1 barrel each of 3 different vineyards. One called Martian Ranch, which is down in the Alisos Canyon area of Santa Barbara County. Another vineyard called Reeves, which is in the Edna Valley. And the third one is called Spanish Springs Vineyard, which is in the San Luis Obispo Coast appellation. So those 3 vineyards, the best barrels from those 3 vineyards combined to make this one wine.
How long do barrels last? Do you have to replace, how does that even work?
I
never thought about that.
As long as you take good care of them, it's just as important what you do with your empty barrels as when they're full in terms of taking care of them and keeping them fresh. So as long as you take good care of them, they can last, 15 years. They're only new once. And when they're 1-year-old barrels, they still have a little bit of oak character, and 2-year-old, even a little bit still. Once they're about 3 years old, it depends on the barrel and what was in it before, but when they're about 3 years old, they become what we call neutral, meaning now they're just an aging vessel that allows the wine to mature and breathe as it's aging, but it's not imparting any character from the wood anymore. I've experimented with other types, but I prefer French oak barrels. They're a little more subtle, and they add to the style of wine that I prefer.
And they have forests in Burgundy and various parts of France that are harvested for the wood. They're replanted very carefully. They harvest the mature trees, and then they make staves out of it and age it from 2 to 4 years on average.
So I have another burning question for our guests, and that is the harvesting of the grapes. Does that happen the same time every year? Is it every year, every other year?
Well, grapes are an annual crop. They go dormant in the winter and they grow during the growing season, which starts in the spring and ends in the fall. And we harvest usually between around September 1st to November 1st. Different grape varieties, different vineyard sites, and of course the climate from a particular vintage changes from year to year. So one year we might be starting a little bit later, one year we might be starting a little bit earlier. The crop level, if there's less grapes on the vine, they ripen faster. If there's more grapes on the vine, they ripen more slowly. There's a lot of variables that go into it, but basically it's an annual crop that's harvested in the fall.
There's wild vintage variations as far as timing goes. So if for some reason it's a very cool summer and growing season, which happens a lot here on the Central Coast in the coastal regions, then you could be behind 3, even 4 weeks of normal. But that could all change if you get a heat wave, which we often do around Labor Day. And depending on the length of the heat wave, that could change the harvest as well. So there's a lot of variables, which keeps us on our toes.
So different wines like Sauvignon Blanc, the Tempranillo, Chardonnay, Cabernet, whatever wines we're talking about, the certain grapes go in to make that type of wine.
Right.
Is the goal to have it taste the same, or is it just how the grapes go? And I asked that because you were saying some of like the corporate wines, I feel like they taste the same all the time.
Right.
Like manipulating of the wines, perhaps, I don't know, but educate us on that, please.
Well, that's their goal. Big wineries that are making a lot of wine want to make a consistent product. Think it's a bad analogy, but fast food. It's
Right.
you want a McDonald's hamburger to taste the same in New York as it does in California. But with the types of wines that we make, they're different every year. The vineyard sources are the same. The grape variety is the same. The way that we make it is basically the same. There are adjustments that you make each vintage depending on what you have to work with. But the difference is the weather and conditions of that particular vintage.
Right. And I think stylistically, we try to make a consistent quality wine. And you learn by doing. You learn, 23 was my first vintage of Sauvignon Blanc. Did I learn from that? Sure. Maybe I want to pick a little bit earlier, make minor adjustments. But when you get your style, you want it to be consistent. And ours is working with just being balanced and showing the best that you can. You judge the sugar ripeness in the grapes, but you also look at acidity and pH. And some winemakers would rather have a higher sugar and lower pH. That's a stylistic thing. We'd rather have
You mean higher pH?
And higher pH, yeah. So we would rather have probably tend to make higher acid wines and slightly lower alcohol because that's what we like. That's what tastes good to us.
I want to talk about your labels, and especially the one that your son did when I think he was very young. The whole story of you guys is so great. Like, you see them in the tasting room. Sometimes Bob's schlepping cases of wine. It's like in and out. It's like you see them. It's like, oh my gosh, hi, Luisa's pouring wine. The folks, Scott and Treva and the people who work there, super sweet, knowledgeable in the tasting room. But talk about the labels because they're beautiful.
Well, I should go grab one of those bottles that you were just talking about, the one that Theo designed. I know where one is. I'll be right back.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so our youngest son, Theo, has always had an artistic bent. And we love the biodynamic feel because it's baseline of organic, but you're also farming according to the lunar cycle and the rhythms of the earth, and you're trying to put back into the earth to make it the most healthy soil to make really healthy vines. And we were friends with his elementary school art teacher, and they did a planetary painting. And I'm like, oh, that would be so fun on a label. So our friend Carolyn Vaccaro, I told her we'd love to make a label, and she and Theo worked with the ideas. He did original painting was a line of planets, and I said, well, wouldn't it be great to make a label to fit into more of a rectangle? And so they took a day and worked on it, and so Theo's artwork is more or less.
I love
That's
it. Wait,
excellent.
how old is he now?
He's 23, so he did that when he was 9. So when he got to be about 20, he was kind of a little embarrassed and not for any reason other than the fact that he just, he felt a little self-conscious about it, apparently, because he had done it when he was so much younger and felt that he could do something better now. And we said, okay, show us. So he hasn't done it yet.
We're still waiting.
What do you guys do for fun? Like with your mental release, and when you're just like, I need to get away from work, what's your mental break for yourselves? What do you do to pamper yourselves?
We went kayaking on last Sunday.
Last Sunday we went kayaking. We have a lake that, after the recent rain, is pretty full again nearby. Yeah, we went kayaking and had a picnic and with some friends, and we like to entertain. We like to cook. We travel a bit here and there. We've been traveling more on business lately than we have on fun, but
yeah.
But we do love to travel.
I love to read.
And frankly, what we do is fun. We love what we do, and it kind of opens the door for a lot of fun opportunities, to go visit wine country and another part of the world, or going to a restaurant and enjoying the local cuisine and a nice bottle of local wine.
So is there anything you guys want to share that you didn't touch upon or talk about?
This is Hermione.
Hermione, oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's part Siamese, so she talks a lot. So anything that we want to share? Well, there has been an anti-alcohol movement that has, I think, hurt our business a little bit. It was started, I believe, by the World Health Organization with shooting for like a zero tolerance for alcohol. And I just want to say everything in moderation. I think the ritual of sharing wine with people at a table, the ritual of there is a story in every bottle, and also incredible history. You can literally study this history of civilization by following wine's history. And I think it, in moderation, really adds something to people's life, and it's more than just a beverage.
Wine is food.
Yeah. So I just want to say to people that, enjoy and maintain. And if you are more interested in our stories, let us know. We're happy to share.
So there's always, and it's never planned. It's just how this show ebb and flows. And when our guests come on, when they're supposed to come on, our earlier guest, Gillian Bell, said something where we are all soil. We are all part of the soil.
Yes.
No matter what, we're all part of the soil. And then when you said, Louisa, when you're farming, you want to put back in the soil, you want to give back. I was like, I got goosebumps, because it was like, it's just this caring. We care about each other. We care about the planet. You care about producing wines that are good wines, organic and farming responsibly. And that's huge. And it's just this through line we don't plan, but it just keeps happening.
Taking care of the responsible farming, taking care of the soil, taking care of the plants,
taking care of the people you work with.
Yeah.
Doing all down the line.
All important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I am so happy you guys were on the show. It means a lot to me because I have a connection with you, and I love your wines. I adore you guys. And again, the staff. We're going to post your website, but please say website, Instagram, your social media. We'll also make sure we post it. So go ahead and do that, where people can find you.
Okay, at Verdad and Lindquist Family Wines, and www.verdadandlindquistfamilywines, I believe, is what we've distilled it down to.
Yeah, if you just Google Lindquist wine, it'll come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make it easy.
Perfect. And listen, everybody watching, if you don't, you're not lucky to live close to them like we are, like I am, they can ship wine to you. You can be a member. You don't have to physically be there. It's always fun, different wines every time. And they have a printout sheet and explains the wines. And it's just a lot of fun. And you'll be supporting amazing people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Timothy. It was really fun.
So thank you for joining the show, everybody. Remember, adopt, don't shop. We've got so many amazing animals in your local shelters, with your local rescue groups, in the community that need homes. So if you're ready to open up your home for a furry friend, they're out there waiting to find you. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.